Hi everyone. Um, so we're doing skinny brew. And as I'm opening this up, I do have some strawberries. That's what I'm eating this morning. I should put them on yogurt or whatever. My kids are funny. My kids are really, really funny. They put anything and everything in my dish drawers, I tell you. Okay, let's talk. So there are two things I want to talk about today, and I think I'm gonna just make one long video because, yeah. So there's two things I want to talk about. I want to talk about Aretha Franklin, and I want to talk about Sister Souljah. So as you all know, I do not like life after death, and I kind of had a problem with her saying that it's a sequel. I don't use sugar. And the coffee, I can understand if you do use sugar, if you do want to use sugar. I think that if it was hot, I would definitely need sugar because it is very, very bitter. But because I put my skinny brew cold, I don't need the sugar like I would have. Okay. And then I put cream in it. And that's why I put a little cream in it. And that's what makes it tolerable. And the cream really means that I don't need any sugar. Okay. So let's talk about Sister Souljah, a deeper love inside. So I had this book a while. Okay. Notice at the top, the sequel to The Coldest Winter Ever. So when she's saying that this was that love after death, what life after death was a sequel, I was like, so is it a sequel to a sequel? Like, how does this work? Should you have read this book and before you read Life After Death? I don't know. I say this because it does drop you, the ending drops you right at the beginning of the other book, Life After Death. But this is Portia Santiago's story. And let me first say that it's a better read. I enjoyed reading this better than I liked reading. I didn't like reading Life After Death at all. I realized that it had all this imagery, this all these other types of images that I'm supposed to kind of understand and blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I don't like it. So there's that. Now, with that being, with all that energy, I think this is a better read for so many reasons. And one of the reasons why I think it's a better read is because it gives you a sense of what happened to them after they were locked up. You know, at the end of The Coldest Winter Ever, it does kind of give you an understanding of like what happened to their mom, what happened to, Portia, and Portia kind of took over this hustling idea from Winter. There are some issues that I have with it. And I think one of the issues is that it does really move kind of quickly. And I thought it does move kind of quickly to where I was like, wait, I'm sorry, did I miss some moments here? And so I think that that's part of it. And in the other parts, I thought it dragged. I thought the relationship between her and her mother, with her trying to get her mother together, was a bit of a drag. And I was hard for me to kind of calculate dates. So like, so how old are you? And I was trying to calculate that sometimes. And then I don't know how I feel about this glorifying this lack of education and glorifying mostly child marriages. I don't like the idea that children are getting married at this young of an age, and like this whole encapsulating feeling about that. I thought that that was a bit much. And again, with the religion, and I'm not necessarily like, I look, these people make me sound like I'm not religious, but I just feel that there are times where the judgment is coming in. So it seems like Portia is the ideal child that is the absolute dichotomy of Winter. It's like our lesson is supposed to be that Winter was the way that you shouldn't go, and Portia is the way that you should go, and how you can use your street sense in a positive way versus Portia, who uses her street scent, and a Portia is the one who uses it in a positive way, whereas Winter uses her street sense in a negative way, which then turns around and makes her woefully ignorant and someone you shouldn't emulate. And the problem that I have with this is that the coldest winter ever, the tone of it was not judgy. And but at the same token, I struggle because even with the coldest, even with this book, I feel like this is not what was happening in the 90s. I feel like some of this was written for the 80s. And I have to think about it. Like, I just feel like I have to think about it. Like, crack in the 90s was it still was prevalent, and it still was hurting families, but the 80s is when it was just all over the place. And this book makes it seem as if, I don't know, it just doesn't, it feels like an 80s book instead of it feeling like a 90s book. And I just struggle with the tone. But again, I think this book is a better read than the other. And so if you have not read A Deeper Love Inside by Sister Souljah, and you are looking for something that is more palatable than the life after death, then pick this one up and read it, and you are going to be much more satisfied, even though there are some major dilemmas and some major problems. I like, if my kid at 16, 17 wanted to get married, we will have some major issues and problems. And if my kid brought some chick home, I am not ready for conversations of my son having sex in my house. I don't, or even my daughter too. I am not open for some chick we're all still teenagers. You're a teenager to be walking, like, I just can't. Like, I don't care if he marries you or not. You need to get up out of my house. So, yeah, those things lead me to that. Now, but you can watch and oh no, you can watch and oh, I'm making a mess over here, guys. Okay. Oh God. My cotton ball to clean up a little. Okay. Such a mess. I have my strawberries over here. So, okay. So I finished watching Genius, Aretha Franklin Genius. And I have some notes. I can't believe I took notes. I have some notes because there's some things I really wanted to remember. Number one, my mother. Okay, so mm, right after MJ died, like a day or two after, there was a concert with Aretha Franklin, and Darren had Aretha Franklin tickets, and so I was like, let's go. I want to go. And I took my mom, I went and bought them. And so I took my mother to one of her first concerts. This was the only concert that her and I have ever been to together. And to Aretha Franklin concert at the Hollywood Bowl. I didn't think that she'd want to go. I thought that she'd be like, it was a retirement party for her friend. And then after the retirement party, we went to this concert in Hollywood Bowl. I didn't think she'd want to go because it's a concert. And she had the best time ever. Don't let her fool you. So she enjoyed that concert to its height. She sung every song. She enjoyed it terribly. Now, the gospel side. So I also have another connection with Aretha Franklin because my grandma, her favorite gospel song was Precious Lord and Amazing Grace. And we played that at my uncle's funeral and at my grandmother's funeral. And so I have this level of connection with Aretha Franklin when it comes to those are my 2 points of Aretha Franklin memories. I'm gonna tell you my own. Let me tell you the favorite thing of Aretha Franklin for me is I am a huge, I know, but I was a huge Designing Women and Murphy Brown watcher. And I know that Ray Charles did one of the songs for Designing Women, one of the things, but Aretha Franklin was on Murphy Brown and she did the song for Designing Women. And I was all up in, and I was just like, who is this voice? Anyway, but I knew who she was before, but those are my 2 points. And there was this huge scene in Murphy Brown with her and Murphy and Candace singing together. Is either Natural Woman. Oh, and don't forget, she had a whole CoverGirl. I think it's CoverGirl that used Natural Woman. Yes, they used the whole. Anywho, so Murphy, so she played a huge role, I think, in my memory. Now, I only really have 5 points to really talk about. Number one, the church. let me pause and talk about, because the hypocrisy of the church is just ridiculous. And then I paused and I was talking to it with my hair reputation, and it made me pause and really think that at the time that this was taking place, like in the 30s, 50s, before integration, we do have to make a moment and acknowledge that church was the only thing that was the cornerstone of interest. And so, like when I was growing up, I grew up in Church of God in Christ. We had church on Sunday. We had church in the morning, so Sunday school, then service, then maybe an after service, then a YPWW, and then you may have Monday, Wednesday, Friday was noonday prayer. Then you had Tuesday, which was um, Bible study. You did have Bible band one of these days, I think on a Thursday, and then you did have a Bible choir rehearsal during one of these days of the week, and then you had choir rehearsal on the Saturday too, and then you had on Friday you had a service, and when we had evening service, and then you'd have a tent revival that would be from sometimes Wednesday to Sunday, or sometimes Thursday to Sunday. And then on the last night, especially if you had a traveling revival, it'd be on a Friday or a Saturday, and people would be staying there until everybody got the Holy Ghost. So my point is, I say all that to say, the reason why you had all these services and all these different things was because there was no real competition. And they felt that if you were doing all of this, then you would be least likely to be out there partying and clubbing and whatever. And then you got to remember, like, if once you did all these things, then you'd have the after party, church after party, which is whose house are we going to eat dinner, to eat lunch, to, like, to hang out. You hung out with these people. And this was the majority of your day, outside of, if you were a kid, you had school and church. These were your things. And so adults, you'd have work and church. These are your people. So the notion that, and then you have these traveling people who would go on these traveling chitlin circuits to have, that would be the same as just traveling for any kind of music. And so the music would instantly merge into the same thing you hear them, the quartets is the same thing you'd hear in it was so merged one-on-one. So even though I was like, my instant gut reaction was, these hoes. Then my other action was like, I get it. There was nothing else. And so they'd go out after singing and praising the Lord. They'd go to and they didn't go to a juke joint, but they had their own little parties and amongst themselves. And I can tell you, I have been to church conventions, and especially as a kid, as a young adult, and I just was not, I wasn't like this. So I went to one church convention, and people were like, oh, just watch out for her and stuff like that. I didn't need nobody to watch out for me. What I did was, and then you gave kids, I still can't understand this. People trusted their kids to go to these retreats in a hotel, and you thought that no sex was happening. I mean, I wasn't. I was going to the movies, and that's how I saw Hellboy. No, Spawn. I saw Spawn. I was just like, well, I'll go to the movies. Like I just walked around the city by myself and we'll go to the movies and I'd go to the mall. That's how I got introduced to Trish McEvoy. I was spending money at Bloomingdale's, Saks. I knew I had taste then. Anywho, I got makeup without my mom. And I was like 15, 16 years old. I was 15. I wasn't 16 because I had a car at 16. Anyway, the hypocrisy though is where, okay, so I understand the going out part. What I don't understand is how you have a 12-year-old, you the pastor, and you have this 12-year-old that's your daughter, and she's hanging out with these grown women and men too, and you seem unbothered that she's hanging out, that she's drinking, that she's smoking. And you see, and you're like, the church is introducing her to smoking and drinking, and and I can understand her having sex with people like her own age, which I don't understand because I can't wrap my head around a 12-year-old having sex. But a 12-year-old having sex with another 12 or 13-year-old, that's one thing. But to be these grown men, I am disgusted. I'm disgusted. So the level of, and then the fact that nobody bats an eye, like not one person is who's the poppy? Like it's just, it's too much. And then the fact that the father's like, okay, well, you ain't going to school because you got church and then you got two kids to raise. And it's like, but wait a second. Explain something to me. Don't you care about who is the father and who is the dude who keeps having sex with, because she don't even seem, and it could be how the actress is doing it, but I was like, did she want to have sex with these men? I can't, it's hard for me to know and for me to answer that question. So there's one part. That leads me to these old ass men. And I had to think, like, when I was younger, I didn't have a problem with being around men or older men and older women. And I think part of that is because I had uncles. But I just didn't, I was raised with uncles. And so I could talk to anybody, but I didn't understand. And so I think back, like, I would talk to older guys, like grown men, not older guys, but like who could have been my father. But I didn't talk to them. Like if they'd ask me like, oh, what book are you reading or something like that, and I'd respond, I didn't feel scared to not speak with him. But I have to put a pause on this and think, what in the world? Because after watching this show, I had to pause and think, what in the world would possess these old men to have conversations with a, a minor? Like it's disgusting, it's gross, and the only thing that you should be saying to a little girl is hi and keep it moving. Keep it moving. So when I see these old men and they want to have a conversation with my daughter, if they ever want to have a conversation with my daughter, I'm gonna be like, hello on her behalf and keep it moving. Because we don't, there ain't nothing you have to say to my little girl. Nothing. Anyhow, and my son. We sometimes let our sons be around older men because we think that that's how they're going to become a man. Like they can train them to be a man. Bump that. I don't trust you either because you could be doing something too. Okay, point number 3. one of the things I hated about Aretha Franklin story, and I think her story is just so sad, is these men are really hanging on her. Like, I mean, her first husband, because I did the math. I was like, Google, I need to try to figure out how old was this grown man? Because he met her when she was 12. You are a grown man, and he was 30. So I'm like, wow. The fact, I mean, and her father didn't really like him, but he didn't like him because he was way too old. He liked him because he said he didn't. Now, granted, he was a pimp, and she was okay with him being a pimp as long as it helped her career. So it seems like her level of willing to do whatever it takes to get to her career was definitely at a problematic phase. So there's that. But I mean, he was really hanging on. I was like, dude, get off. Ugh. And so I think that we do have to consider, like, man, there are a lot of men out here who can see that a woman is doing something with her life and they just hold on for dear life. Like, I'm going to ride this train until the wheels fall off. Hello, Holly Berry. Like, her ex-husband, who is literally riding her until whenever her kid turns 18. Like, nigga, get a job. Okay. Now, last point. You know, there was a moment where she was getting into a fight with her husband, I think her first husband. And there were a few moments where I was like, okay, is he gonna hit her? He's gonna hit her. And I just thought, like, man, women are really at the mercy of being treated right. Like, at any given point, men could be so aggressive to really hurt a woman. And it's like we're always in this grace period of, could you please not abuse me? And could you please not put your hands on me? And I just thought I thought watching her in many of these, and especially her first husband was the one who I was like, okay, so he's going to put his hands on her. And when he did it from what we only know of as once, but it could have been more. And I just found that to be very, very troublesome. First of all, I love the actress that played her mother because I liked her in the Notorious B.I.G. movie. I just like her as an actress. She plays these roles very, very well. So I love the phrase that she says, "Don't you ever wait for something bad to turn good." And I just thought that was a really powerful phrase to really think about and to hook your teeth into. Jennifer, overall, I thought the whole, what is it, 7 episodes, 8 episodes, I can't remember, on National Geographic, I thought it was really good. I am not sure that this actress did her justice, Cynthia. I am not upset with the actress, but I think the problem that I have is that it's missing soul. And the soul aspect is Aretha Franklin. And so Jennifer Hudson is having a movie that's coming out, and I think that it'll be better depending on the story. But I think that her depiction of Aretha Franklin is going to be better only because Jennifer Hudson has the voice. And it's not just that voice, but she has the soul. One of the reasons why I have a problem with Jennifer Hudson's career, and I do have a problem with Fantasia's career too, so don't get it twisted. But even though I think Fantasia, side note, Fantasia could probably do a better job. I think she'd do a better job at like a Patty but she sucks as an actress. Like, I mean, she did her own story, and I was like, you just being yourself and you suck. How does this happen? Anywho, Jennifer Hudson. Jennifer Hudson is a good actress, but she has a soulful voice. Like I said, one of the problems that I have with Jennifer Hudson's uh, career is pop R&B was never it. I think Fantasia's R&B is better than Jennifer Hudson's R&B. I know. Don't start shooting me. Let me tell you why. Jennifer Hudson, to me, has a voice that is misunderstood. I don't think that she's had the right songs that demonstrate who she is as a singer and as a person. I think that she did well with Dreamgirls, and I think that that voice, that the songs were a good pick for her. I actually think Beyonce did a better job, but it's one of Beyonce's best acting roles that she's done. And I actually think Beyonce could do a hell of a job as a Tina Turner if we can work on the acting. But can you imagine what she'd look like on stage being a Tina Turner biography? I think that would be awesome. Anywho, I keep digressing. Jennifer Hudson, she knows what it's like, even in the times where Cynthia's interviewing in this film. I was like, Jennifer Hudson could do that better. And I say that because Jennifer Hudson is she's a singer. She knows how like to deviate in these spaces that Cynthia doesn't know. She's an actress, and that's a different type of entertainment. And yes, she has sung on Broadway, but see, this is the thing about Aretha Franklin. Singing well doesn't mean, but she did a really good job of singing. She did a good job of singing. Singing well is nice, but Aretha Franklin had a little extra oomph, and Jennifer Hudson has that oomph. And that's why I think that she's going to do a really good job. She does have that soul that I think Cynthia is missing. I think, and people disagree with it. I think that Cynthia would have done a better job at being a biography of what is her name? Oh my gosh, what is her name? Definitely not Patti LaBelle, because I think Patti LaBelle, even though she doesn't look like her, but Fantasia is the one who can carry the voice of Patti LaBelle. Like if we had to do a biography, Patti LaBelle just needs to work with Fantasia, because they the ones she can hit the notes, she can run around. But I think Cynthia would have been a better Gladys Knight, because Gladys Knight's voice isn't as soulful and rich as Jennifer Hudson. Even though I know that people are going to come at me in the comments, don't come at me in the comments. I just think that Jennifer Hudson has a soulful voice, and I still think that Jennifer Hudson and Fantasia owe us a gospel album. Mm-hmm. 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 They owe us a gospel album. I'm sorry, and I'm waiting, because I think, and I know that Aretha Franklin sold the highest number of gospel. It's the highest selling gospel album. I'm gonna let you know right now. Jennifer Hudson, what you should have done, Miss Lady, is you should have come out with the gospel album to promote this movie. that you're about to drop. And I say that with all respect and honesty. Drop a gospel album, because your gospel album would, it may not do as well as Aretha Franklin, but it would do very well to promote this movie. Like, it would do absolutely so well. And in fact, if you can get permission from the estate, you should re-record the whole album. Yeah, you could. Yeah, you could. You could re-record or some of Aretha Franklin's hits, but I think you should re-record the Aretha Franklin gospel album and feature Fantasia. Even though I know that they didn't like each other. I mean, I know that there's beef between the Aretha Franklins and the Patti LaBelle's, even though they say that they, even though Patti LaBelle's like, we didn't have no beef. Yeah, you did. But I think it would be what the consumers want. You drop a gospel album and feature a Fantasia, and I will be here, not even asking for a percent, but I'd be here buying it anyway, and talking about it and going through every single song and being like, this was it. But as I wait, and I've tweeted them both, gospel album, that's what we want. Stop with the R&B. The R&B is not it. Especially Jennifer Hudson. Jennifer Hudson's R&B has always felt off. And I think it's because she was meant to be gospel. And you could do this gospel hybrid. You could replace Yolanda Adams. Yeah, you could. Girl, find your calling, and your calling is a gospel album. Anyway, okay, I'm gonna stop. So have a great afternoon.